We're talking hoops. And you know our guys will ramble.
Can you just email me the rest of this story?
This is Just Dubs with John Dickinson.
Dickinson's an underrated talent, 100%.
On KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
All right, welcome in. Happy Saturday to you. John Dickinson with you for the hour here from 10 until 11. We got Raf Corral. We got Kyle Harr. We got the Warriors back in action on Thursday night at Chase Center. First game out of the All-Star break. They will play again tomorrow at Chase Center against the Denver Nuggets. But the Warriors suddenly finding themselves once again at a bit of a crisis point in their season as they get blown out against the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis makes his debut. Joe Lacob speaks, but the Warriors are going to be without Steph and Curry here coming up for at least another week and a half, if not longer, with 26 games to go. So we're with you for the next hour. 808 KNBR, the number, 415-808-5627 to jump in and join the conversation. Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open as well. The best YouTube chat in sports as well. People filing in here. The Just Dubs and Dubs OT YouTube chat here for the sports leader. And we also should let everybody know we do have some Giants baseball coming up for you. That's right. Cactus League action. That seems like it gets earlier and earlier every year, but Kerry Crowley's going to be by here in about an hour to get you set up for the Giants as they begin the Cactus League today down in the desert. Kyle Harr, good to be with you, my friend, as always here on the Just Dubs program. Feels like it's always been a stroke away from a crisis point for the Dubs, but it seems like they're right back here out of the All-Star break, thinking they're going to get Steph Curry back, thinking they're going to get Porzingis in the mix here, and thinking that they can try to build some semblance of momentum toward the end of the regular season. And they get the bad news on Wednesday that Steph's going to be out for a little while. And that means this team's just going to have to keep plodding along here as they did in the lead up to the All-Star break. Good morning to you, my friend.
Yeah, good morning to you. Good morning to Raf. And yeah, this frankly has been season from hell. But you know, you look at the team and it's an older roster, and this is a realistic scenario with an older team. And now you have an aging Jimmy Butler out for the season. You have an aging Steph Curry, and we are not quite sure when he'll return. But yeah, I mean, it was good to see Kristaps Porzingis just get his legs under him. But for the first stint, it did look like he was out for some time. He looked like a player who was out from basketball for some time, but it was good to see him provide what he can talent-wise on the offensive end in that second half.
Well, and you can see, and we've talked about it, the fact that you can see why the Warriors would want him, and you can see why, if they can keep him healthy, that he could be a factor, not only for this team, as it's currently constituted, assuming Steph Curry's back at some point and playing here down the stretch, but also you could see where he would have been in some ways the perfect addition to a Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler squad. But again, that ain't happening because Jimmy got hurt and Steph's hurt now. And so the expectations for this season definitely change. And I think, I use the term crisis point here because there's been a lot of discussion league-wide as it relates to tanking, and there are so many teams right now. I think you could make the case that a third of the league is actively trying to lose games for draft position. It feels like every day, and the Kings currently the leaders in the clubhouse with the worst record in the league, and they've lost 15 in a row. Every day they're taking one of their regular players and announcing that they're out for the season. I think they've had 3 of them or 4 of them here in the last week, and like 3 in the last 4 days between Sabonis and Levine and now Hunter, who they just picked up and I think played 1 game for him. You've got teams, pulling guys out late with the lead. We saw that when the Warriors got their most recent victory against Memphis at Chase Center. You got, the best players remaining on that Grizzlies team are taken out with the Grizzlies up by 10, 12 points there late. And the Warriors went on that run to come back and win. Point being, there's a lot of discussion about tanking, and I don't really want to have the tanking debate, in this space, at least at this point. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it throughout the remainder of the season on Dubs OT. But the reality is the Warriors are not in any position to believe that they can get into that mix, already having 29 wins and looking at teams that are in the 12, 14, 15. I mean, there are so many teams currently just in the teens as it relates to that. And I'm looking right now. And the Kings aren't even in the teens yet. They're only at 12, but you've got Pelicans 15, Jazz 18, Mavs 19. The Grizzlies have lost 4 in a row. They're sitting on 20, but then you've got 3 other teams in the Eastern Conference that are in the teens. So how many teams are in the teens? That's 6 teams that are in the teens. You've got the Kings who are below the teens at this point. So that's 7 teams. 8 if you go to the Memphis Grizzlies, who have 20 wins, and the Warriors have 29. So it's just you're not going to be in a position where you can actively tank. You're at this point 8 games right now. It's clear of the play-in. 8 games. They'd have to lose 8 games to the Grizzlies to completely avoid the play-in. But what we're finding here is the Warriors are also very quickly going to be out of the mix in terms of, and I think they were effectively out of the mix for the top 6 when Jimmy Butler went down now a month ago. But they're 4.5 games back of 6th right now. And it's funny, you look at the game on Thursday and you look at the way that the Warriors really competed into the All-Star break. And I maintain, Kyle, that they were fighting because of the belief that Steph was going to come back and Porzingis was going to add to this team, and they were going to be playing for something here meaningful in the final couple of months of the year. And maybe it still would mean that the ceiling for this team is get into the playoffs, and it's probably first round and out, I think. But there was something worth playing for. Thursday night was alarming. And look, the Celtics are they're in a different world right now with the development of some of their young players and the moves that they've made to be able to maintain even without Jason Tatum. Yes, it's in the Eastern Conference, but what they've done is truly impressive. And Tatum has risen, Brown has raised he's raised in the absence of Tatum, his game to another level here, an MVP type level, to get the Celtics in that position. So Celtics are well coached, well run in terms of the front office. They've got more players that are younger or in their true prime, like Jaylen Brown, who's able to make that leap from star to superstar. And this is somebody that already obviously has a Finals MVP with this current squad here in the last couple of years. So you set all that aside in terms of, all right, this is where the Celtics are, this is where the Warriors are. But the most concerning thing, I think, is the fact that the Warriors had lost that compete. And I wonder, and we'll see tomorrow, after frankly getting embarrassed. I don't make much of the fake comeback in the second, the fourth quarter there to get it down to 12. And it kind of got Chase buzzing a little bit. They got blown out, and they, for the most part, got embarrassed. I wonder if there was the realization in play that, oh yeah, this thing's cooked and we're stuck, and we could go 10-16 or worse, and it's not going to affect anything. Like it may mean the Warriors are 8th instead of 8th, they're 10th, or instead of 8th, they're even 9th, depending upon what some of these. I mean, Portland's 10th, and they got beat by 50 last night to the Denver team. I don't know if you saw that, Kyle. Portland got beat last night 157-106 at home by Denver. Denver put 157 on them last night up in Portland. And we've seen, obviously, the Warriors go up to Portland this year, and it's a house of horrors for them. So, and that was with Jimmy, and that was with Steph playing well, that Portland. So I wonder where the fight is for this team, because it does seem that they're entering a little bit of the abyss of the trade deadline is passed. They were hopeful that they were going to get Steph back to go with Porzingis. He's not coming back for the foreseeable future. Again, I think it's going to be at least probably a week and a half to 2 weeks. So how does this team find the motivation and the fight, knowing that most nights they're going to be at a significant talent disadvantage? That's something they're going to have to find here. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of shows, unfortunately, like the Dubs OT show that we did on Thursday night here to close out the season, where it's going to be talking about, the off season. And eventually I don't do the draft until we get to about mid-March. I know others, but we may be talking about the draft in mid-March on Dubs OT, Kyle. And I don't think anybody's really ready for that, because the Warriors are not going to have a legitimate shot at getting into the top 5. I mean, they're looking at 13, 14 probably at best in terms of a lottery pick.
Yeah. And then in terms of, like, if you wanted the Warriors to tank, like, the math doesn't work out. Okay, because let's just put it this way. If it's worst case scenario and they win like 5, 6, 7 games, that gets them into the mid-30s. And the next closest team that's not a top 10 seed right now in the West is Memphis, and they have 21 wins. So I don't think Memphis would play to get to that number of wins that the Warriors have. So JD, you put it this way: if they go 10-16 the rest of the way, it doesn't really change much. If they go, I don't know, 6-22, it probably doesn't change much. If they go 16-10, it probably doesn't change much, unless, well, which isn't going to happen, by the way. But that's just kind of too far from the 6th seed, but they have such a big gap from them and the worst team right outside of the play-in tournament.
And the other concerning thing, and here's the reality. You watch a game like Thursday, and I know it's been discussed a ton. They've got games against the Pelicans and games against the Grizzlies and multiple games against the Kings, and like they've got some games against some of these teams in the East still ahead here. Washington, Brooklyn, home games against Washington and Brooklyn at the bottom of the conference there. They still go and play Washington, I believe, on the road here coming up. So you look at it, and there are a bunch of different, winnable games, I guess, on paper for this team. But I think it's frustrating, and the concerning part is, at least for me, the fact that, as this gets ugly and this team tries to evaluate, and I've already seen it in the chat, and we'll get to the Joe Lacob interview with Tim Kawakami, play some of the audio from what Tim released of that conversation and kind of react to it, because Joe Lacob has not spoken for a long time. But yeah, Clem Akers puts up there, Lacob won't allow this team to tank, and that's true. The other concerning point that I have, though, about the remainder of this season, as ugly as it potentially could get, and you watch the game Thursday and you feel like, oh God, like 6-20 might be on the table if Steph wasn't going to come back at all. And I do think the plan is for Steph, obviously, to be able to come back. But to your point, the most reasonable thing to do, as much as it sucks for everybody, because even if this team is mid, you still would prefer to watch Steph Curry play, because Steph Curry is an all-time great, and he's the best player ever to play for the Warriors franchise. And he's a Bay Area freaking legend. I mean, he's right up there with Montana and Rice and Bonds, and he's an all-time great. So at a minimum, you want to at least be entertained and be able to talk about the things that he does on the basketball court, even if this team was going to be a 15-12 team, even if this team was going to be a 13-14 team. But you watch the game on Thursday and you start to think, oh, like 6-20 might be on the table for this team if they can't, get him back in relatively short order. Here's the next level to it. And 808 KMBR 415-808-5627. Here's the other part of the danger zone. And then we'll take our first time out, and then we'll get to the YouTube chat, and we'll kind of close out the hour here on the Sports Leader. I am worried about how a lengthy stretch for the rest of this group without Steph starts to really cloud how everyone gets evaluated. Because, I mean, our buddy Greg Silver said it the other night, and I think he said it as beautifully as anybody has. You lose Jimmy Butler a month ago, and you also lose Brandon Pajemski. Moses Moody is not going to be nearly as good or effective as consistently as we saw him be when Jimmy Butler was with this team. And they were building that momentum where it did look like last year, as much as you say season from hell. And I think you're right. Other than the 12-4 stretch right before Jimmy got hurt, other than the first week of the season when Kaminga looked like he was going to fit and maybe they had a little action there, other than those two little stretches of about, 18 to 20 games, it has for the most part been the season from hell, or at a minimum, kind of a reprint of the worst parts of each of the last 3 seasons. The concerning thing I have, because the Warriors are in this position where they are a summer move away to be able to try and pry that window, which I do think is currently shut in terms of the ability to get back to being championship contender. As much as they are multiple moves away, but at least one, Draymond looks worse and worse by the night here. And that was kind of the quintessential. Is he overmatched? Is he not bringing it? Did he come to the realization that Steph's cooked for this season, or Steph's out, so therefore this season is cooked, whereas the fight had been there? Is it just age? Because Draymond is the key barometer, I feel like, in many ways, to the competitiveness of this team when he plays. When he doesn't play, obviously it's on everybody who is playing to kind of find it on their own. But when Draymond plays, without Jimmy, and obviously in these situations without Steph, but hell, even when Steph is playing, Draymond's ability to bring it, whether he plays well or not, but brings that energy and that intent, I think it basically determines whether the rest of the team comes along and shows that fight, or whether the rest of the team can kind of say, oh, well, Draymond didn't have it tonight, and he's a 4-time champion and an all-time great defensive player in his own right, and then, all right, you know what? Then we're kind of cooked tonight. So you just sort of lay down. I'm concerned about the evaluation of Draymond, who looks like he's on the decline in terms of consistency, although he shows you on the nights where he's got it that he does still have it. But again, that's part of getting older, as it happens fewer and farther between. Draymond's on record throughout his career as saying that he is, less motivated because he's competed at the highest levels, which frankly I understand. So he's less motivated in some of these regular season games, even regular season games where the team is whole. I get it. When you've reached the heights that the Warriors had reached with Draymond, it ain't the same to dial it up at the level that we had become accustomed to seeing him do that with relative regularity. But I'm concerned about the evaluation of Draymond. I'm concerned about Podziemski continuing to plummet from useful 7th or 8th man to a guy that league wide maybe doesn't have a lot of value, who, oh, by the way, now you have to pay. Like, there is a danger zone in having this team become the worst version of itself over these last 6-7 weeks that goes beyond just the record. It goes toward the inability, if it gets ugly in certain ways, to believe, to be able to fix it. It gets harder to fix, in my opinion, in the offseason, the worse that you play and the less that you compete over this stretch. So those are kind of the things I'm keeping an eye on here. Can Moody hold it together? Can Podziemski figure out some way to be an effective player when the main guys are out? Because he basically goes from solid player that can be frustrating and has good nights and bad nights to where the bad nights just overwhelm the good nights. And there's already a lot of fan angst surrounding Podziemski. He's somebody that believes he's going to get paid in terms of an extension this offseason. I think he would definitely be in a trade that the Warriors are looking to make. But, the value of some of the players on this roster plummeting would be a concern of mine between now and the end of the season if they can't figure out a way to get it together. So 808-KMBR, if you want to jump in on the phone lines, 415-808-5627. Let's take our first time out. We'll come back here. We'll get some chats, Kyle's clicks, and then we'll also play some of the key points from Tim Kawakami of the SF Standard, his interview with Joe Lacob. Joe Lacob speaks What does it all mean? We'll dissect here coming up. Just Dubs on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader. This is KNBR, and this is Just Dubs with John Dickinson, streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, back with you here on a Saturday, Just Dubs. JD, John Dickinson, we're with you until 11. Kerry Crowley at 11 as we'll get you to Giants baseball, Cactus League action coming up here. And, of course, we'll have Dubs OT for you tomorrow, right after the Warriors take on the Denver Nuggets. We'll be at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. YouTube only, stream only edition of Dubs OT tomorrow. But we're looking forward to being out at Harmonic. We'll see if we can get Kyle Haar maybe out to Harmonic tomorrow, although he's probably playing a round of golf or something up until he's probably getting a 9 in. Kyle, you getting 9 in before the Warriors game tomorrow? What do you got? Early start. I know we all got to watch the gold medal game in the Olympics for hockey between Canada and the United States, but you getting a half a round in tomorrow?
Man, I wish. Yeah, 12:30 start. I'm like, yeah, I mean, no, but I'll probably be
once
at home
a year, Kyle, and it's always this weekend. It was this same weekend a year ago that the Warriors had the 12:30 against Dallas. I think it was the Andre Iguodala jersey retirement, if memory serves. That this same weekend on the Sunday here, coming out of the All-Star break. Let's get to the phones. 808 KNBR. We'll get to some chats here as well, Kyle, in just a second. We do have Rob in Lafayette who wants to jump in and join the conversation. And I'm told, I can't believe this, but I'm told Rob thinks I'm being a little hard on the Dubs here with 26 games to go, considering the injury status. What's going on, Rob?
Hey, JD, thank you. You know, you're always an optimistic guy. I thought this morning was a little pessimistic. Hey, there's a couple positives I was hoping you could talk about. We have one of the longest homesteads coming up. I think March 8th through 20th, we have 7 games at home. And number 2, I think our season-ending schedule has like many bottom 10 teams. So I was just hoping you could talk about those few things.
Sure, you got it, Rob. First thing, I'll correct you. In March, they do not have a lot of home games. In March, they play on the 2nd. They basically play tomorrow. And then they have Saturday, Monday at home. So 2 games next weekend, Saturday against the Lakers, and then Monday. Then they go on the road. They come back and have 2 games, and then they're on the road for the middle of March. They go to New York, Washington, Boston, Detroit, Atlanta, Dallas. They have 6 games right there, all in basically 9 nights. They got a couple of back-to-backs, Detroit and Atlanta, New York and Washington. Back-to-backs among them. So they actually don't have a lot of home games in March. It looks like only 5 home games for the entire month of March. And they go to Houston and OKC and Utah. They play Denver at the end of the month on the road. They've got home games in April. They got 5 of them in the final 12 days of the regular season, but some back-to-backs mixed in there. And, yeah, I've heard a lot about this, Rob, and I appreciate the call. So thanks for jumping in. We always love the conversation. And yet they do play, Memphis and New Orleans and Utah coming up here in terms of teams that, the Bulls at home, I think you would maybe put into that conversation over the course of the next month. They play Washington, but they play Dallas on the road. They do play the Wizards and the Nets coming up here. There are some. Here's the reality, though. All of those games the Warriors could lose if Steph Curry's not playing. All of those games the Warriors could lose. And even against these teams that are tanking, and look, we'll get to the Joe Lacob comments to Tim Kawakami here because the Warriors ain't going to tank. And I think, everybody knows that at this point. It makes no sense for them to tank. But, yeah, there are some on paper winnable games. But, again, nights like Thursday show you that, and I think we haven't quite gone down that road because they've been pretty competitive, even though they haven't won a lot since Jimmy went down, with or without Steph. I think they were at one point they were 4-6. I think now they're 4-8 or 4-9. Like, it's starting to slide a little bit there. But with this team shows you on Thursday night against Boston that any game is on the table for them to lose. And I hate to think what happens if they go to New Orleans and they go to Memphis here coming up this week, regardless of what happens tomorrow, and they lose one of those games, because then all of a sudden you lose the first one, and then all of a sudden you got to rest some guys in the second one. Like this thing has the potential. Yes, there are winnable games, but I think it has the potential to get ugly faster than people think here if they don't find their compete against the teams that are tanking. Often what happens is teams in the Warriors position, they compete against the better teams, and they kind of think, oh, we can win tonight against some of the lesser teams. And then they wind up, playing, bad games against some of those teams, even that are trying to tank, and you wind up taking some L's. So I still think they're in a little bit of a danger zone, but you're right. When you do run through the schedule, there are a lot of opportunities there to win some games. But again, to me, it's more about, can you get Steph back by the middle of March, and then make sure that you beat Washington, and you beat Dallas, and you beat the Nets, and you beat the Wizards, and you win some of those games. Because look, April's a grind. I talked about the home games in April, but they're playing the Spurs and Cavs and Rockets are the first 3 home games in April. Spurs, Cavs, Rockets. So with or without Steph, you ain't going to be favored in any of those games, even playing at home. Then you do get the Kings a couple of times, but the Lakers are mixed in there. And so the Kings are the final week of the year, a couple of wins there. And then the Clippers is more of a coin flip. They've still been competing despite the fact that they tore down their roster a little bit. All right, let's get to the Tim Kawakami stuff here with Joe Lacob from the TK show, courtesy of Tim and his interview. And he wrote a column. Check it out, SF Standard. Tim's scheduled to join us on Dirty Work coming up on Monday. I'm going to be sitting in for Copes as he continues his vacation with Derek Papa. The tanking topic. Well, here's Joe Lacob. We'll start right here on the Warriors and why they're not going to be tanking.
Well, I saw where another owner came out today and spoke on it, Matt Ishbia. Well, I think it is not in my DNA, nor in this organization's DNA, to do that. I don't know if you want to call it tanking, you want to call it whatever, but it's not a good look. It's just sports. We're supposed to play to win. And that's just not a way that I would be comfortable ever trying to improve our team. And some of our fans, I'm sure, I hear it all the time, would love us to, whatever you want to call it, but lose for a better draft position since, they assume we're not going to win this year. I could never do that. And I don't think our coach is built that way, or our team. And so I don't like it. It is happening, obviously, around the league, and it is a way to build a franchise, I guess, to get draft choices. But it also takes a lot of years to do that. And you draft players, they tend to be pretty young. They've got to get better. They got to be taught. It's a long way to go.
It is. And look, the Warriors have tanked, by the way. You can make the case that it was, they tanked by natural causes, right? When Steph went down in 2020 and Klay Thompson was already out, and they did add Andrew Wiggins in that 19-20 year, the year that ended on March 10th or 11th due to COVID. And they went 15 and 50 in the 65-game shortened season. They were one of the 8 teams in the league that weren't invited to the bubble. Like they also did in 2012 when they acquired Andrew Bogut and shut Andrew Bogut down to get him healthy, and shut Steph Curry down. At that point, Monte Ellis obviously was in the trade to go to Milwaukee to bring Bogut back. And if you remember, the Warriors, I think they owed their pick to Utah. If it fell out of the top 7 or 8, I think it might have been top 7. And so they got to 7. They made sure they lost enough to get to 7, which netted them Harrison Barnes in that draft. If they win a couple of more games, Utah gets their pick and they don't end up drafting Harrison Barnes. And obviously Harrison Barnes part of the first championship team, and Harrison Barnes ultimately, kind of led them toward the path of being able to sign Kevin Durant with the cap spike, and he didn't take the initial contract offer beyond his rookie scale contract, so they end up with him going elsewhere, and Kevin Durant's here. So Harrison Barnes, you don't get Harrison Barnes by tanking, in 2012. And again, Joe may say, it wasn't really tanking, it just weren't. But the Warriors have done it a couple of different times. But again, it's too far gone. Too many teams, in my opinion, have a head start on them at that point. Let's get a couple of chats here. As well. We'll kind of mix the chats in as we run through some of the Joe Lacob quotes. Kyle, let's get to 2 or 3 here real quick. Florida Dubs fan, they should semi-tank. Leonard was a 14th pick. His draft is deep. Obviously, Giannis was in the teens. Even getting to 12 would get you something better than we currently have. It's a fair point, but is anybody really thinking, and I again, this is something I'm sure we're going to get into a lot, Kyle, over the next 2 months. Is anybody really thinking if the Warriors could wind up with a lottery pick anyway? Like they could get to the play-in, lose in the play-in, you still get a lottery pick that's going to be somewhere between 12 and 14. But and obviously your chances, small as they are, I mean the Mavs were a play-in team last year and won the lottery. The team with the worst odds, or the worst record and the best odds, has not won the lottery, I believe, since 2019. So that maybe doesn't or does bode well for Sacramento. We'll see. But obviously this is a deep draft. This is on paper the deepest draft we've seen in some time. But does anybody really think the Warriors should actually draft a player and keep that player? Like I sort of look at it like the draft thing for this year, if they wind up 12, 13, 14, to me, I would think that player should be going in a deal, as opposed to the Warriors looking to bring that player in and expect him to be somebody that's going to be part of their rotation next year. We just have not seen that be able to work consistently enough, even with guys like Moses Moody, who now have proven themselves to be pretty steady role players.
Well, it is pretty funny because in a year where you do get rid of Kaminga, you might be back in a position where you might end up having a top 12 pick in a deep draft class, and you can get a talented player, and that might tear the hopefully it doesn't tear the front office or divide the front office in terms of, well, should we pick the player? Should we trade the pick? What player should we pick? But it would be pretty funny because I do think it could rewrite some wrongs if they do end up trading that pick for a player that can help right now.
I just don't see how you would try. And to me, if you are going to make the pick, it has to be the best possible player that would be able to come in and play immediately. Because I understand on paper the theory that, hey, if you get somebody like that can come in and be in your rotation, the Warriors, even if you believe keep Jimmy, wait for him to come back, keep Horford, keep Porzingis, keep Melton, make another move, you're still going to have a bunch of guys on that team that are going to need to be rested in back-to-backs or beyond minutes restrictions or limited in terms of the amount. So having an actual capable, player that's 22, let's say, or 23, or 21, that can come in and give you something on paper would be important. We just have not seen the Warriors be able to make that work. So I'd be more on the mind of that pick should be going elsewhere. Correct, JD. I did not say keep the draft pick, but an asset we can use. So fair enough. I'm not sure the difference between 14 and 12 is that significant necessarily in this draft, 14, 12 to 15. But okay, fair point. We're on the same page there. Let's get 2 more here. We'll get to more of the Joe Lacob. Lacob probably willing to settle with a first round appearance with the benefit of revenue at this point, given the depleted roster. That from our buddy Erwin Kwong. Always great to hear from Erwin. Yeah, I mean, that is the absolute ceiling for this team is, navigate the play-in, whether you're in the 7-8 or you're the 8-9, and get to the first round, and then you're probably going home. And that's even with Steph and Porzingis, I think, playing at a high level. All right, one more. We'll hear a couple of more of the Joe Lacob clips in this segment. Moody, Pod, Santos, Richard, Melton, Porzingis need playing time together. Enjoy the game more. All right, enjoy the game more. Thanks, EB here. All right, sure. I mean, yes, I don't disagree with that, but they need more time playing the game together with 30. With Steph. That's kind of where I would go. We're going to skip a couple of these clips. There were a couple of long ones that we can get into at a different point. Lacob expressed, he acknowledged and discussed, the fact that they didn't get a big fish at the trade deadline. Also got into the future in terms of wanting to be able to get a player. Let's hear what he said about Draymond Green, though. We'll go to cut I, Raph. Here's what he said. This continues to be kind of weird in terms of the discussion. And, Mike Dunleavy took some heat, obviously, for the way he reacted to the trade talks and whether Draymond's name was in it or not. Obviously, we know Draymond or Jimmy had to be in some kind of a trade if they were going to make it with Milwaukee. But here's what the Warriors owner had to say about Draymond. Again, semantics, but let's hear it from his mouth.
He was never discussed in a trade. Mike was 100% correct what he said. I know he got a lot of crap for that, and it did look defensive. Yeah. I mean, I think he would say that in retrospect. But the truth is, the way these things are, you don't just easily banter around names unless you're getting serious. Yeah. These deals can be based on draft picks. They can be based on players. They can be based on different things. And we never really got engagement on some of the big deals to the point where you get into specific names. People can look at the roster and they can make assumptions about who might or might not have to go if you got a certain person. But I can tell you he was never shopped in any way. He's a core person in our franchise. You don't trade a Draymond Green simply or easily. You do it if you have to, and you're getting tremendous value and you're improving your team. And even Draymond has said he understands that. I mean, you have to look at these things. But his name was never specifically discussed with another team. And that's the truth.
All right. So semantics there, Kyle. I think, look, in essence, he's saying things were never really at the point with Milwaukee or anybody else. And I don't think, nor had I heard that they were shopping him. I do take the Warriors at their word as it relates to that. I think it was the simple fact that if Milwaukee wanted to come to the table on a Giannis deal, Draymond or Jimmy had to be in the deal. And the Warriors seemed to be, at least publicly, pretty adamant that they did not want Jimmy to be the guy that was in the deal. Now, we'll see if that thought process changes in the offseason, but it seems like they're pretty committed at this point, or at least want to create the perception that they're pretty committed to bringing Jimmy Butler back for the final third to half of next season. The reality, though, is if you look to make some kind of a significant move with the salaries that are currently on the roster, Draymond is going to have to probably be somebody that's in play here coming up in the summer. The other part of this is Draymond's contract. He can opt out, and that essentially is a no trade clause, right? I'm going to opt out. I'm going to be a free agent, so you can't trade me. I got to opt in, if you're going to be able to trade me too. So it becomes a little bit trickier there. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. Of course, Joe Lacob addressed Jonathan Kaminga finally being moved and whether or not he should have been traded sooner. We'll get into that coming up next. And then the big one I thought was Joe Lacob talking about whether Steve Kerr will be the coach of the Warriors next year. So we'll wrap up the Joe Lacob clips via Tim Kawakami and the TK Show and his podcast and column for the SF Standard. Coming up next, your comments in the YouTube chat. 808 KNBR if you want to sneak in a call here in the final 15 minutes. It's just Dubs on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader. Live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Just Dubs with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
Final segment before we hand it off to Kerry Crowley. We'll get you Giants baseball here on the Sports Leader. We'll be back tomorrow, Dubs OT, after the Warriors take on the Nuggets. That is a afternoon game, matinee, 12:30 tip at Chase. If you're coming to the game, stop by Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City and say hi after the ball game. As we'll be going live, YouTube and Twitch, stream only edition here for the Sports Leader. All right, Kyle, let's get 2 clicks. We'll hear some Lacob, and then we'll wrap it up going rapid fire with some clicks here. Best YouTube chat in sports, talking some Dubs here on a Saturday morning. No cap, always a pleasure. So you don't trade Draymond Green and you don't trade Jimmy. How exactly do you get Giannis? He's such a bad liar. I'm wondering why the Warriors are so concerned about kind of protecting Draymond's ego a little bit here. I get it. He's a franchise legend. I mean, I do understand that part, but I think Draymond, as Joe said, understands it. I mean, look, if it's not Jimmy, it's Draymond. And if it's not Draymond, it's Jimmy. I mean, to me, it's as simple as that. Now, you can make the case that it never got close. I think everybody believes that, but it's just semantics. Like, of course, but, if we were going to do a trade, we'd have to give up somebody, and you'd only give up somebody like Draymond for somebody really good. Well, obviously, I mean, the question, though, becomes what's the level of player that you'd be willing to give up or to get back, rather, to give up Draymond. And I think, that's the question for the offseason if it's not so. We all know they do it for Giannis, but what's that next level that they'd potentially do it for? All right, one more here. Diggum, always a pleasure. Imagine having to manage next year Curry's knee, Melton's ACL, Jimmy ACL, Porzingis' health, and Draymond. How is that going to look? It's tough. I mean, Draymond, a 25-minute-a-game player that, you can count on half to 60% of the time. Curry's probably not playing a lot of back-to-backs. Melton maybe could graduate to where he could play some back-to-backs, but the no back-to-back thing has really worked well for him. He's been healthy since he came back. Jimmy's probably not playing in back-to-backs, although Jimmy had played more than I think anybody could have anticipated in the year that he was with the Dubs, which, the Warriors were the 4th best team in the league for that year, by the way. I know that's been floating around a lot. I mean, that I think is the statement toward maybe why the Warriors should be inclined to kind of wait for Jimmy, but you can't wait for Jimmy without still looking to improve the roster. All right, let's hear a couple of these TK clips real quick. He addressed Jonathan Kaminga first. The notion that Joe Lacob was just so enamored with Kaminga that he could never be moved.
Not hard. Everyone assumes a lot about that. Look, I liked him as a player. I like him as a person. You okay, Tim?
Yeah. Talking gets me talking.
I liked him as a person. I liked him as a player. And at times he showed a lot of potential for us. Just never quite really worked entirely. And he got injured at inopportune times. And I think we all knew we had to do something. But we weren't going to give him away either because he is a talent. And a lot of people think that too. So it just worked out. We got something that we thought was worth doing. Otherwise, we'd have kept him. And he probably would have played a lot, given Jimmy's injury.
Well, and thank goodness we didn't see that option, I will say, because that truly would have been the worst of all options had we be just watching. Could you imagine watching Kaminga basically be the lead guy? Basically Minnesota series Kaminga between now and the end of the year without Steph. Yeah, could that have built this value back up? Possibly, but I don't think the Warriors were going to do a whole lot of winning. Let's get the second clip here. Joe Lacob asked if they should have traded Jonathan Kaminga sooner. I think they should have, but here's the owner.
I don't think so. Not and get a proper return. Look, everybody can be traded. I mean, people say I loved him as a player. I was protecting him. I was whatever. That's just not true. I did like him. I like all our players. Otherwise, we wouldn't be acquiring him if we all don't like him. But it just didn't work. It looked like it was going to work. It was off and on a lot. And so, if you don't get a good deal, you're not just going to give a talent. He is talented. There are a number of teams that did express interest. We just couldn't get a deal in the summer that made any sense. And we did get one at the trade deadline that did make sense. So we did it.
All right, let's get a couple of clicks here. And again, I mean, we'll see if Porzingis can turn into something longer term in terms of the next couple of years. I do think it could be a salvageable situation if he can stay healthy and be productive. But again, let's be honest. I mean, that's kind of Joe not wanting to admit a mistake. They should have traded him 2 years ago. But they overvalued the types of players that were worthy of a return. Like they believed, and it was reported that they were only going to trade him for a star. And so when that didn't materialize, or the Warriors were unwilling to add other draft capital to a deal, then they wind up keeping him, and they wind up keeping him too long. So, I mean, that's just the reality there. But Joe, speaking to that point for the first time here. All right, let's a couple of clicks, and then we're going to hear one more Lacob on Steve Kerr's future. And I think this is something to continue to dive into throughout the course of the week here on Dubs OT. But let's go 5. Just boom, boom, boom. 5, the best 5 on the board, Kyle, to close out the show. Joke's on you, JD and Kyle. Do you think the front office will change roster philosophy? The connectors are worthless without key players, since there's no trade value or bad team without Steph. Also, implications to Kerr. I don't know. I do think they need one more big-time scoring. They got to figure out the one scoring threat type, lead guard or wing type guy to get in there to help them win the games when they got a bunch of guys out. That's the short answer to that. Kyle, you want a quick thought on that?
Yeah, but I mean the whole system is built around Steph. So when you take out Steph, I mean, yeah, of course, like everyone else is going to suffer because of it.
All right, let's move on here from Jokes on You to Gene. That's the issue. Butler will be on a minutes restriction. We're talking February 2027, year 1. Yeah, that's tough. It goes back to basically where things were last year down the stretch, and how good will this team be at that point? Diggum, who here is willing to give Draymond $60 million over the next 3 years? I'll say it first, nobody. No, I think it's probably more like 45 over the next 3 years if you rip up the deal. Or give him his 25 back for next year plus 10 and 10, kind of 45, but spread it out over 3. 2 more. Irwin Kwong, Warriors equal play-in as currently constructed. No argument there. And then our final Kyle click here from Florida Dubs fans. Still don't see the point of Steph coming back at all, except for a glance at him and KP together. KP is slow of foot, even at 100%. Well, I think you do want to hold up, I think, the value of everybody else. In addition to being able to watch Steph. All right, we're not going to have time for the clip, the clip about Steve Kerr, but we're gonna make that a part of Dubs OT tomorrow, a big part, because every time Kerr's name comes up, it gets a little it's a little strange, honestly. It sounds like a lot of it's on Kerr, but it just seems like there's something afoot between Kerr and the front office, and like everybody's truly going to have to be on the same page for him to return, as much as I do think he's more apt to return now than he was, let's say, before the deadline, if Jonathan Kaminga was still going to be around, and that was going to drag again into the offseason. But we'll get to that tomorrow. Big thanks to Kyle Hart. Big thanks to Raf Corral. Big thanks to everybody in the chat and the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Kerry Crowley is coming up next. We got Giants baseball. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Sports Leader.